Hi guys, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and I'm just chilling because I got this knife for you on Saturday, my Saturday review. This is a CTSmart that I got from GearBest. I've been shying away from reviewing the CTSmart knives because most of them are like $3, $4, $5 US at GearBest. And while I am a budget connoisseur, that is so low that it scares me. This guy costs a little bit more, and at least two, I think it was three different viewers of mine, subscribers, asked me to review this knife, the YH11 by CTSmart at GearBest. So I ordered one up because they thought it was really great for the price. D2 steel and, G10, this clear jade kind of color, orange or black, you get it in. This blue anodized hardware, blue anodized backspacer here. I think it's aluminum, liner lock. Cool knife, right? Well, okay, so I ordered one in and I got it. And I'd like to tell you everything that I've learned about this and let you know if I think it is worth the budget price or not. So if you'd like to get some more information about this knife, then stick around. I'll be the first to admit that this knife looks good, at least for my style of preferences. Actually, I like just about any knife. I'm one of those guys that I don't have a specific preference that I stick with. I do have some preferences and stuff, but I tend to like just about any knife as long as it's well built at a good low budget price. That's my main area. Of course, I like to get some knives that cost a little bit more every once in a while. I still haven't shown you my birthday knife that I got, a really nice fixed blade from a Canadian custom knife maker. But we're talking about this guy right now, CTSmart. That name, like I said before, scared me a little bit. I got dirty hands. I've been sharpening knives and stuff, and that's just steel dust. So what do we got here? Made in China, YH11. They say it's D2 steel. They don't say what the Rockwell is. D2's Rockwell is usually 58, 59, something like that. We've got stonewash on the ricasso and the flats. But with this swedge and then your saber grind here, that's all satin. We've got an upsweep. It looks like it might be flat until I put it on a perfectly smooth surface, and there is a slight upsweep right at the tip, just barely, almost imperceptible on a perfectly flat surface, but it's there. Liner lock, it's got bearings in it, those brass or bronze cage with the steel ball bearings inside. The liner lock locks up early, just where I like a brand new knife to be, and I'll show you a close-up picture of that right now. Lockup is solid, no blade play back and forth, up and down. And the cool thing about this liner lock is, how they usually cut a little bit of a relief so that your liner lock can, pivot in the way it's supposed to be. On thinner liners, very often they just bend a little bit. But this guy, they cut a hole, an oval hole in the liner to allow it to get that flex, to bend, to become springy, to spring back that way. Not very many knives do that, but you can see that on the picture of the inside. There's no skeletonization other than that. That's not really skeletonization. The liners are inset, so the G10 doesn't show off the liners on the outside. The only place you can really see the liners easily is by the liner lock right there. And otherwise, you have to look in on an angle to see it. This is an aluminum backspacer. It's got some bumps on it like that. There's a good picture of it. So that gives you a little bit of extra grip on the handle. Other than that, you've got almost a 90-degree angle right there. Same thing up at the tip. You can grab this knife just about any which way you want. And you can really grab it high and get a good hold, and you've got a long, weapon, if you will, or tool, if you will, however you want to use it. Don't sneak up like this. You're going to cut your finger if you put any pressure on it. There's no sneak up trail there, but you can put your thumb back here and your index finger back here, and you can get very good control, good small, delicate cutting that way. You've got a wide enough top of the blade right here, although that swedge does come in a little bit right here. There is a wide enough pad there for you to get, good purchase without getting your fingers and thumbs too tired from using it. I like how this grind looks. I like the grind lines on it. Very clean and crisp. Everything is pretty good. It's not all exactly even. You've got some side chamfering on the G10 all the way around, and it's much more accelerated on the side right here. And hopefully you can see that. It looks like, I'm looking at the LCD, and it looks like you should be able to see that. And that helps give you a nice, good grip on it. The pocket clip is rounded all over the place. It didn't create any hot spots when I was using it. It's only right side tip up. You can't move it anywhere else. And you do get a little bit of the knife sticking out of your pocket, and I'll show you that later. You've got this blue anodized hardware. Proprietary hardware you need. I don't like that, but I got some tools that I bought at Harbor Freight a couple of years ago when I was in the US, and there was some screws in there that have 3 wings. Phillips has 4 wings. I had some that have 3 wings, and I just ground the tip down a little bit so I could put it in there, and it grabbed on. It did do a little bit of damage to the to that nut, or screw, I should say, and I'll give you a close-up of that. If you're a knife collector, it's a really good idea to get a great variety of tools simply for these kinds of reasons. And especially when you're not going to use it very often, then the budget price at Harbor Freight is okay. If you're in Canada, Princess Auto has all kinds of security screws. That's usually what the sets are called, so look for that. And you can get a decent price on those things. Everything else is Torx. And let's talk about the sizes and everything here, and I'm going to zoom in to do that. We've got a nice sharpener's choil there. So from the end of the sharpener's choil, from tip to tip here, the cutting edge, 9.78 centimeters. That's 3.85 inches. Big blade. The blade length is less because the G10 comes way out here on the handle. So that is 8.6 centimeters, 3.39 inches. The blade thickness is almost 3 3/4 millimeters, 3.74, which is 0.147 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind right there, 0.64 millimeters, that's 0.0255 inches. For a knife that's almost 4 inches, 3 3/4 inches, that's reasonable. 6.64, totally good. I like that thickness behind the grind. I wouldn't want it too much thinner, and I wouldn't want it too much thicker. It's just right on the mark. The handle length, 13 centimeters, 5.13 inches. The grip area here from the choil front of this guard to the end of the handle is 10.5 centimeters, 4.1 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip, is 1.27 centimeters, exactly half an inch. Well, almost exactly, very close to half an inch. And the total length of this knife when it's open is 21.35 centimeters, which is 8.5 inches. It weighs 130 grams, 4.6 ounces. That's a good weight for an 8.5 inch knife, if you ask me. I like it a lot. How much is this thing going to set you back? How many shekels do you have handy? I got mine from GearBest. I recommend that you get yours from GearBest if you want one. US dollars, 14.84, Canadian dollars, 18.57, euros, 12.62, and pounds, 11.17. You do have to pay a little bit of shipping, which pretty much all the knives at GearBest have now. And as I've said before, if you buy one knife, you've got to pay, roughly around 10% shipping, usually. If you buy 2 knives, then it's usually closer to 3 or 4% shipping combined, so you really start saving money. I usually say get 2 or 3 knives at a time. If you're in Canada and you're getting folding knives, I would say don't get more than 3, because if CBSA gets their hands on them, and the bigger the package is, the more stuff that's in it, the more likely you're going to get inspected on an import of knives. And if they inspect your knives, unfortunately, they sometimes take knives and there's no real logic sometimes, at least no good logic sometimes of why they take knives. They seem to obey the Canadian laws and they'll still find a reason to take it. This knife, you can go like this with your wrist and the blade starts to deploy without having to touch the blade anywhere, without touching the flipper. And they tend to call that a gravity knife or a centrifugal force knife, when in reality it's inertia. CBSA isn't really good on science, I guess, but that's the words that they use. I did see a video by one small knife store in Saskatchewan. They tested centrifugal force with knives like this, meaning they bolted them onto a drill and then they spun them at the pivot end. They spun them and the blades never came out. They spun them on this end, and that's centrifugal force at a pivot point on either end. They couldn't get the blades to come open, and yet when they did this, they could get the blades to come open, and that is inertia that does that, not centrifugal force. And it's not gravity unless you go like this and it falls out. If you have to take your wrist and wave it down and stop, that's not gravity. That's many times gravity. Gravity is a very small force compared to that. Okay, I'm getting ticked off at those guys. Anyways, that's what you get here. What do I like about this knife? Well, I like a lot of things about this knife. I'll talk about those in a minute. First, what don't I like? I don't like that they say it's D2. Why? It's not D2. D2 is a carbon steel. It's a tool steel. So it's like any other carbon steel. It rusts much more easily than stainless steel does, because stainless steel has got chromium in it, or chrome. And that helps inhibit rusting. Of course, stainless steel can rust, and it does in the right conditions. But this stuff, I did some tests on it. I've got a specific test that I do. I'll talk about it in more detail at a different time. But I did my rust test on this knife 2 times, and yes, it did not rust. Very, very slight on the edge of the grind. It started to form a tiny, tiny bit of corrosion, exactly like my stainless steel control blades did. I had 8CR13 MOV, 9CR18, OS8, 440C, and several others that I tested, and this behaved like stainless steel. It did not behave like D2, so I believe this is stainless steel. I'm not sure what kind of stainless steel. When I sharpened it, it tended to be, a little bit challenging to sharpen, a little bit more challenging than 8CR13. I'm thinking this might either be 8CR14 or maybe 9CR18. If it's 9CR18, I'm really happy with it. Is this knife still worth the price they're asking? I think so. I think it's definitely worth $14, $15 US for this knife, even though it's a stainless steel. Yeah, I recommend it for that. If you definitely want D2, then I say don't buy this knife. And that's my recommendation. I like how you can grip all over the place and get good hold on this. It doesn't really create bad hot spots unless you're working really hard. There are some angles in the handle on the inside of the handle here that tend to get a little warm after a while doing some hard cutting. I don't like the proprietary pivot, but that's easily dealt with. The detent should be a little bit stronger. It's not too bad. When this is in your pocket, it's not going to open very easily. I don't think it's a danger in your pocket to open up while you're walking around, especially, in your right hand pocket, because the blade is facing the back and, it's not going to open that way. If you wear this on the left side, you could have something push up on there a little bit and cause it to open. Yes, it's a risk. I think the risk is very low though. I would have liked if they would have created 2 pocket clips. This one's sort of proprietary the way it's made. It only works on the right side. They would have had to make a different pocket clip to be swappable to both sides. So I see why they didn't put holes on this side, but they could have dealt with that differently. The clip holds well. Let's show what it looks like in a pocket. As I was promising before, there you go. Not too bad in this jade kind of clear color. It wouldn't look too bad in black either. Orange would be a little bit bright and people would notice it quite easily. That's just over 1 centimeter poking out, just under 1/2 inch or right close to 1/2 inch, maybe just over 1 centimeter, 1.2 maybe. So there's that. And the springiness of the clip is quite good and it holds quite well. Let's do some cut tests. I've got some of this 1 inch wide banding still. And yes, I've sharpened this knife, and all my tests from now on, My cutting tests are going to be with the knife sharpened by myself, the way I like my knives to be. I will no longer be doing cut tests, unless I change my mind, with the factory edge, because the factory edge is what the knife will be like for, less than 1% of its life, at least my life that I have with it. As soon as I'm done my reviews, I've been always sharpening my knives to my own specs anyways, and I'm going, that doesn't really make sense. If I'm showing people the factory edge, and if it's not that good, they might not buy the knife, but the knife might be quite good once it's sharpened properly. So I suggest to people, if you're a knife enthusiast, learn how to sharpen your knives, and then, you can test your knife based on how well it cuts when you've sharpened it the way you want it. This thing cuts great once it's been sharpened. It cut quite well before I sharpened it. I had no problems with it, but just as part of my current regimen or my current method of sharpening them before I do the video, I just sharpened it. So this is 7-strand paracord, and it cut through it very, very easily. No problem at all. It cuts great, and the edge hasn't been denting, no breaking, no bending, no rolling. Good edge. I think this steel is actually quite good for a budget knife. Let's cut some paper, show you how that looks. And that's a push cut, trying to stay at the same spot on the blade. That's the most difficult way to cut paper, and it cuts very well. Good knife. I like this knife. If you like this video, please share it with somebody and let them know about these knives. Let them know about Canadian Cutting Edge. And please subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber. And if you are, make sure you've clicked on that bell that's beside the subscribe button so you'll be notified of every video. I still have a big giveaway going on, and so let your friends know about that giveaway. Thanks for watching. Remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.